And I don't quite know if I'm thinking about this in terms of like, some sort of like a product or a research thing or anything. Like right now, it's still in a hypothesis. My hypothesis is something like there's, if we want to basically distill, you've been doing this for what, 10, 15 years?
10 years, almost 10 years,
10,
yeah.
10 years of expertise,
Mm-hmm.
and try to bring some of that expertise to sort of lay people, then I think some of it has to be in sort of how we express kind of what the steps are. So to be concrete here, like if you go and look at like how I would write down a recipe, or if I go to a cookbook or some recipe online or something, it's kind of written for, I think, a bunch of issues with it. One is that it does this sort of, it goes up and down levels. Like on the one hand, it's telling you all these micro steps. On the other hand, it'll say some big thing, but like also this small thing on the side that ends up pulling into some other big thing. The other is that it really is sort of tailored for, this is something that you can make independently just as is. And it's going to take you an hour or whatever, but it's not suited very well for sort of combining with a bunch of other stuff. And there's a really nice correspondence to me with basically in computer science with like parallel with concurrent computing. If I can like express like a program to you as like a sequential set of steps, and that's great. A computer can execute it, but if you want to run like Photoshop and whatever Chrome on your computer at the same time, like it's a lot nicer for the computer if you can sort of express what pieces need to be run as units, and like what dependencies they have between each other and so forth.
Sure.
So in some sense, thinking about like a language sort of for cooking that would help both me as someone who doesn't have the expertise to sort of think about all those things and sort of keep all those things in my head, of how to write that down in a way that'll be easier for me to then sort of pull out, and then also maybe some sort of system to actually help combine things. When I say system, I mean like a computer program, but I think it doesn't necessarily have to be a computer program. It could just be kind of a methodology. It's just that like once you have a methodology and a language, like you may as well.
Correct. So this is all for human application?
For
the most part?
Yeah. This is not going to be like some robot that cooks for you.
Robots, I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of those demos, and that's definitely going to be a little bit of the future. Like it's not going to be like, it's not going to completely eliminate us all, but it's going to have some sort of factor.
Well, that's just another tool.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let me try to unpack that a little bit, because that is. So I personally feel like there is a very, very small sub niche of people that think like you and think like that want that, and this is me like helicoptering up and trying to see the whole picture, where it's like you're frustrated with the product that comes from a cookbook, and I don't think that it's written for the lady who lives in her house and cooks for her 2 kids and doesn't really care about effectiveness. She cares about just tell me what to. So my girlfriend's mom posted a photo of zucchini blossoms, and my mom was like, she tagged me in it, and she said, Justin, how do I cook these? And I gave like some super straightforward description. I was like, you should grill them and serve them with prawns or something like that. And my mom texted me after seeing that, what I responded to my girlfriend's mom, and she was like, that's all you're going to say? Like, you're not going to give her like a big rundown of like, this is a recipe and whatever. And I responded, no, because she doesn't want to hear that. She just wants to hear what goes with what and how to do it. And chances are she's probably not going to do it anyways. She probably just wants someone to do it for her. And what does my girlfriend's mom comment right after that? She's like, that sounds kind of complicated. I'd rather just have you cook it for me. So you have to keep in mind that like when they're sitting in these meetings, these publishers and these chefs, they're told, the chefs are told, we have to make this a little bit more accessible. We have to dumb this down a little bit. We can't, these people are cooking in their homes. They're not cooking in restaurants.
Sure.
So we can't make this into what you would ideally like it to be. So I think it definitely gets twisted, and that's what's causing a lot of your frustration with like the way that things are laid out. And I do think that there's a better way to do it and lay out. I think about like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Chef. The first recipe he has in it is like scallops with mango salsa and something, where it literally incorporates heat control, knife skills, and sauce making in the first recipe that he teaches you. Whereas 99.9% of other cookbooks have you start with making stock, which teaches you nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Making stock doesn't teach you. It teaches you actually like very high level things that are like way beyond what you need to be like. I mean, it would be like teaching you how to like tweak something in a program before like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
To kind of equate it to what you do. But
totally.
It's creating that language is going to be the hardest part. And time, like I have a friend who says people always have to have something to hang their hat on. Like you have to figure out how is it going to. Have you done like a Blue Apron meal start to finish?
Yeah, it's exactly the thing that I hate.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that, because I've never done it, but they're the ones that I see that are like doing something with it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's kind of exactly to me the sort of we totally did Blue Apron for like a month or something, and I have a ton of friends in New York that do it occasionally. I mean, I hate it because it like takes all of the a lot of the satisfaction out of cooking, and it's just kind of monolithic. Like I know I'm eating the same thing that everybody else is eating this week. But basically you get a box with sort of portioned out, packaged sort of produce and spices and stuff, and a nice sort of printed out card that has kind of the recipe tailored for that particular portion. Cut the onion this way, like, heat the pan up this long or whatever, and then like at the end you get a dish. It's to me it's like it's sort of a commoditized version of cooking.
Sure.
Where you get to say that you cooked. It's sort of this experience. Like I think we certainly did it this way, and I think this tends to be how people do it, which is like, oh, like let's do a Blue Apron tonight as like an experience.
Got it.
It doesn't really solve the like home cooking problem, and it is. I mean, it's sort of making you kind of like just the line cook. Not that obviously like the line cook role is very valuable, but I think that part of the joy of cooking, especially kind of at home as opposed to professionally, is like you kind of get to be all the things.
Totally.
So that's kind of I think that's my experience. Like I really disliked it.
Sure.
You go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, there was one other system that I've seen. It's like a smart induction cooktop.
What is it called? Sorry, you cut out.
It's Heston. So it's called Heston Q, Hestan QCUE is the name of it. It's a smart induction cooktop. That is the closest thing I've seen to, it's controlled through your smartphone. It basically makes it so that you can't burn anything, because all it's doing is twisting the knob on the induction burner for you, relatively speaking, where it controls the heat, and it says, okay, 3 minutes has elapsed since the shallots were in the oil. Now you can add the tomato that you chopped. You know what I mean? That you, and the cool thing about that is that you can mix and match, but that's more, so Blue Apron solved the portioning and flavor, or like going through your cabinet and what spices do I use and whatever. Heston solved the I burn food every single time that I cook problem. You know what I mean?
It's more like a kind of sort of more of a lack of skills.
Correct. Yeah. So with both of those together, I feel like there could actually be, and then you have like sous vide, which is also like, I don't have time.
Right.
All of that is comes together to solve these kind of like big macro problems in cooking at home. Where my head goes is like, what if you did like there was a red and a blue and a green, and the red was all protein, so you had like beef short rib and pork belly and chicken thigh, and those were like 3. And then on the next one there was blue, which is like salted cabbage with cumin and tomato with paprika and something something something. And the last one was like fusilli pasta and couscous and naan bread. And you could ideally make all of these, they all would go together. It's like when Banana Republic comes out with their summer line. They try to make it so that you can wear any t-shirt in the store with any pair of pants in the store, and it's probably going to look good.
Right.
Like, how do you do something like that with recipes for like a season where you release, and each one has its own, and when you click in, like you import the beef short rib into a timeline, and the timeline has those little individual blocks.
Yes,
and then you import the tomato with cumin, and you import the couscous, and it's like, I'm having beef short rib with couscous and tomato. And each recipe has like, okay, starting from 0, what does this look like?
Yeah.
That could be an interesting way to think about it.
I think that's exactly kind of getting at the kind of kind of vision of like is exactly. I think the expertise that you have is that I definitely don't, and I think most other people don't. It's exactly the like. All right, if I want to like add like take this element and this other element, and this other element. That maybe I know how to cook them individually, but like maybe I'm operating from like from a recipe from my mom or something, or online or whatever it is. How do those fit together, and sort of how do I end up planning out it in such a way that I'm not either not able to cook it in like the hour that I have after work, or the 3 hours that I have on Sunday, or that I'm constantly like running between stuff and oh shit, I forgot to do this, and like oh my like
correct.
Well, and all that sort of
after enough time of like whether it's machine learning or trial and error or whatever, it could get to a point where you could mix and match all these recipes, all these components to a recipe with like components to a dish or a dinner, I guess would be the final product with recipes of individual dishes.
Yep.
You could essentially like print out or pull it up on your phone of like a timeline of like, this is what your 90 minutes is going to look like. And you're essentially like creating your own Blue Apron experience.
That's exactly right. Totally. And like that fits into, of course, also maybe a grocery list, or the prep list. Yes. That's
correct.
100% exactly that. I mean, to me, exactly Blue Apron is, in parlance of like computer systems, like an application of this kind of system where like whatever Blue Apron also throws in the supply chain issue of like I guess having to go to the grocery store or market otherwise.
Sure. No, I mean it's totally a thing that is necessary and would help a lot of people, and is super necessary because, and I mean talking super macro, our parents were the first generation that had smart appliances in their house.
Yeah.
And where production got to a point where they could not cook anymore. And so many of them took advantage of it. I mean, my mom doesn't cook at all. Really? And so, I mean, that's where it got lost. It got lost on our parents' generation. So we never grew up cooking. And now all of us are going into the real world and we're lost because we love food, but there's nothing. You know what I mean? There's no
exactly. Totally. And the flip side is that we're also maybe one of the first generations, at least it was like this for me and my family, that have exposure to a lot more kinds of food. Like I said, my mom has cooked the same dishes for 30 years and she's happy with that. Like she doesn't like going to get Thai food because she doesn't like Thai food.
Sure.
But our generation is like not satisfied with like just eating spaghetti bolognese.
Yep.
every week.
That's so funny you say that. I haven't even thought of it like that. Where yeah, the accessibility is a total factor. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, man, that's really exciting that you're thinking about that.
Yeah. Of course, the hard part is like actually figuring out how to write recipes down like that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But
again, you have to take yourself out of that Martha Stewart cookbook
yeah,
mentality and
yeah,
like think
totally.
way down to basics of like, what is it that is actually happening here, and how
Yeah,
does this translate into like how you're going to format this.
right.
Are you working solo on this? Is it like a personal passion project? Is it through a company or?
It's no. It's right now. It's a personal passion project.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I'm when classes start up in the fall, I'm going to decide whether it's going to be a research project, and I'll like rope some PhD student who's super into cooking too, and
Mhm,
like we'll
mhm.
write some like programming languages papers or something, and then
Sure.
or or I might try and spin it off if I can get to a point where if it seems feasible.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, yeah, this is it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, for now, it's just like something that I'm obsessed with that I talk to everyone about. Uh,
I
and
think your
yeah,
biggest hurdle is going to be overcoming the dumbing it down part,
right.
because everybody, like, there's going to be so many people that are going to tell you it needs to be easier, it needs to be easier, it needs to
Yeah,
be easier.
yeah,
And I mean, you can get to that point, I think, but I think where you're at right now and where your head's at now, it needs to be for people that are where you're at. You need to
totally,
scratch your own itch first,
totally.
and then it can get to a point where, I mean, like, as cliche as it sounds, like Facebook started as a college thing, and then they added features that were appealing to your mom. You know
Totally.
what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it has to scratch your itch first,
Totally.
and then it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing I see. Because I mean, Blue Apron could be awesome and badass, but somewhere along the way, some lady sent a angry email that said this is too hard and this is complicated and make it easier for someone like me. And they all sat around in a meeting and they were like, we need to make this easier for Karen in Kansas. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where it frustrated people like you. So I feel like
Right.
if I could offer any advice from everybody that I've seen that's trying to make do food related projects, it's to just stick to your guns on it, because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know the product that you would sign up for.
Totally.
And I think stick to that, because there's more people out there than you would think
Totally.
that are interested in it. I
Yeah.
look at I mean, I didn't think that cooking on the internet was going to be possible, and then binging with Babish came along, and there's people that cook with him on Twitch every single week.
Yeah.
So there's definitely an audience for it, and I like that you're thinking about software as opposed to the other thing I was going to ask you. Have you seen or tried any of the masterclass courses, whether it's
I
Gordon's
have
or
not.
Thomas Keller's?
I've been seeing those ads or whatever. I have
Yeah,
not yet. Yeah.
I haven't tried it myself, but I'd be curious to see how they lay out
Hmm.
the education. Like, what does making agnolotti with Thomas Keller look like in a masterclass course?
Yeah.
Um,
That's actually a good idea because I've been thinking of now that I'm getting into it even more. Like it'd be great to just for the joy of it to like
sure.
to take a class at like a culinary school or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like I'm not going to find time for that, but like a master
Yep.
class,
Yep.
why not try
Um,
it out?
have you ever worked in a restaurant or done any sort of restaurant, anything?
No, the thing that got us on this kick is my partner used to work at Quince in San Francisco,
Yep.
but not as a coach. She was
Mm-hmm.
front of house.
Sure.
But I've never like I did like some catering in high school.
Mm-hmm,
Like I would
mm-hmm.
kind of help out with a friend of a friend sort of
Sure.
thing. But no. I never worked in the.
That's another thing I would advise you to do, is to go do a stage somewhere, and I can
Yeah.
totally help that happen where it doesn't feel like you're gonna get your head bitten off when you go into like, I'm totally happy to connect you with any one of my friends that has restaurants that would totally love to have you, just even if it's just observing for a day.
Yeah, I was wondering about that actually because I've been thinking that would be a super for me because I'm so interested, super cool thing to do. But what's the
Mm-hmm.
level of expertise that they expect? Like I didn't go to culinary school.
Not at all. So that's exactly how I would pitch it. So that's exactly how I would pitch it, is like an observational thing,
Mm-hmm.
and you give a very similar intro to how you introed me. I'm friends with the chef de cuisine at Per Se right now, and that would be super cool to go just see. And I give that intro of like, this is what I'm working on, and I just want to hang out on Entremet Station. So that's the guy who does all the garnish for the meat station.
Mm-hmm.
It's the busiest station. There's so much going on because not only are they doing all of the garnish for first meat, second meat, and Wagyu on the tasting menu,
Mm-hmm.
but also like 60% of the vegetable tasting menu comes off of that station. And so it's like, it's madness multitasking, not just during prep, but also during the service.
Oh, amazing. That would actually be super cool.
A value for you get from that. Or even my friend is working at a restaurant called Contra, which is also a really, really good restaurant. But that's like a small kitchen. And I think there's also a value to be gained from that, where it's like you have your station and you have 6 or 7 dishes coming off your station. How do you navigate that? Because even if it's not like direct takeaways, I think that there's value in you.
Oh, I totally think so. I think it's exactly the kinds of observations that I want to get. Is like how do people who kind of do this for a living, how do they operate, and how do they think about approaching this?
Right. And so, I mean, if you send those emails, I would encourage you to talk about it as an observational stage, I guess, where it's like, I don't really need to cook. I just want to like come in and watch a little bit of prep and a little bit of service.
Cool.
And if any of those restaurants speak to you, or if you have any that you're, that are really like, I would really love to spend a couple of days here, email me and we'll figure out a way to make that happen.
Oh man, that'd be awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Keep me posted on this project because it's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I've been super stoked on your channel and your other stuff. I'm just like, I can't tell you, it's like so cool to see someone talking about the stuff that you're talking about and sharing it. When I come visit Seattle, let me take you out to drinks or dinner or something.
Please, totally. And I have 2 very near and dear friends who just moved to New York they were living in Sonoma forever, and they just moved to New York. And one of 2 things is going to happen. I'm going to go to Japan in October, or I'm going to go to New York in October. So it's kind of dependent on if my dad is able to travel with me or not. If one or the other happens, please.
Let me know. Hit me up if you're.
Totally. Okay. Cool, man.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Of course, my pleasure. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye. Hey, present day Justin here. I'm normally super keen on sharing my own takeaways from something like this, but I feel like I did enough talking in that interview, so I want to hear from you. What were your biggest takeaways from this interview? Tweet at me and hashtag the Emulsion, because I would love to show Amit some love as well. All of his stuff is linked up down below, as well as in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Emulsion podcast. I appreciate your ears more than you know. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help sponsor the show, head on over to patreon.com/Justin Khanna. Other ways you can help out right now include giving this show a review on iTunes so more people can find it. I also love seeing you folks liking and commenting on the video if you listen that way, or even just share this episode with a friend. Now's normally where I would tell you that my name is Justin Khanna and I hope you have a good one, but you've probably got another podcast episode to listen to, so I'm just gonna get out of the way here. Excuse me.